course, when you think of South America, llamas, but these are not llamas, these are alpacas, a relative of the llama family. I have some sweaters over there and a traditional weaving done with alpaca wool. So cute little animals. Moving on to the Sacred Valley. This here on your sheet is Salinas de Maras, or the salt mines. The Incan civilization, very, very sophisticated group of people. Their civilization was born in the 12th century, or they was created with the first emperor in the 12th century. The zenith of their empire was in the 1490s. So stop and think about that. When the Spanish arrived and conquered the Incan Empire, they were at their grandest. It took them several hundred years to get there, and it took about a decade for it to come to an end, or at least come underneath Spanish control. It's still there. Their culture is still alive. To kind of put that in perspective, the United States of America, we are probably at our zenith. We're very powerful. Can you imagine in 10 years from now, we come underneath control of another civilization that is very, very different from what we know? That's what the Incans had. That's what happened to them. Like the United States, it took us several hundred years to get to where we are, and in 10 years, poof, we're underneath the control of another group of people. Of course, we know about the U.S. civilization. We're very advanced, very intelligent. We produce a lot of scholars. The Incans were no different. A very advanced group of people who produced a lot of very intelligent people, and they did a lot of research. The salt mines here, these salt mines, they date back to the Incan times. So these mines that have been through here are hundreds and hundreds of years old. This area is still mined. I'm standing on the mountain where the water comes out, a stream. It's very high in salt content. They create these little reservoirs where they hold the water, and as the sun evaporates the water, it leaves the salt behind. Then they come in and they mine it and they use it. Spanish came in, they then mined it, and now the Peruvian government. People still work this. This is still an active salt mine. And it's huge. This, again, it's hard to give you a sense of scale. This is hard to see. This is the area called More. This reflects when I was saying about the Incans being very, very sophisticated, very an intelligent group of people. One, you have to marvel at their architecture. You have to marvel at their music, at their textiles, what they created. But this is a research laboratory that the Incans developed. Scholars feel that this is an area that the Incans, again, they had a huge empire that covered many, many countries, what we call countries today. You have to feed a lot of people. And as their empire was growing in size, they had to worry about how do you feed these people. This was a research place with each terrace at a different elevation. You get a different temperature. They would, of course, you have different directions. This is a big circle, a cylindrical place. Of course, you have kind of an S shape here, then you have more straight terraces here. That is done on purpose. You have different angles, capturing different amounts of sunlight at different temperatures, and the soils are actually different. So this is a place where the Incan, I guess, farmers or scientists came here and did experiments with possibly genetically modifying plants, are experimenting with new crops as they traveled around to try to figure out how do we make this crop grow where we are. We know this is because we have found traces of 250 grains and vegetables in the soil. When archaeologists run their experiments, they have found traces of 250 different cereals and vegetables. This is why we think it is an experiment station. And this is in its original, minus the plants. Nothing has been done to this. Here's a slide of Ollantaytambo on your notes. Ollantaytambo is called a living Inca town. Most people here, when you go there, they're still trying to live their traditional ways. When they farm, they still use foot plows. No modern equipment. They dress traditionally, they eat traditionally, and the village is down here below, and then up above, of course, are the ruins of the Incan palace of Ollantaytambo. This place is considered the second most important site outside of Machu Picchu. Slide of coca leaves. When you get at high elevations, people chew coca leaves as a little bit of a stimulant to deal with the high elevations. And so I just thought I would include that in there for you. The Incan Trail, the Incans at the height of the empire, if you have a massive empire like the Romans, you have to be able to get around. The Incans built a road system of when you count it all together, 15 to 18,000 miles of roads. Pretty impressive. This is one that is still there. This is called the Incan Trail. It's a 4-day walking journey. You can start in near Aguas Calientes, and you walk for 4 days, and it takes you straight to Machu Picchu. Most of the roads have been destroyed, but there's still quite a few miles of roads that are left behind, and it's still used. Again, I don't know if you can see the woman dressed traditionally. She's going somewhere, and she's walking to get there. Of course, now it's a tourist destination. Many tourists love to hike the Incan Trail to Machu Picchu. And just as you have in the Himalayas, people to carry, again, you're at high elevation. For people like me who want to do this, I live at 300 feet elevation, it's hard to walk and you don't want to carry heavy equipment. And as you hire people in the Himalayas to carry your goods, called Sherpas, it's the same thing here. This is the group of men, the Sherpas, who are packing up and getting ready to carry the gear to their next location. Of course, that's the mother of it all, Machu Picchu. I pause for a lack of words because it's hard for me to find words to describe this place. I've been to many incredible places on the planet, and I think this one is near the top. It's hard to get to. We don't know much about it. Hiram Bingham rediscovers the place in the late 19th, early 20th century. And it had been abandoned for several centuries, and because of that, it was it's the best preserved Incan town that we have for us today. The Spanish didn't even know about it. So when Hiram Bingham stumbled upon it, it was still pretty much in its original form. Of course, time had taken its toll on the place. We don't think this was a typical Incan town because of it's very hard to get to. Scholars believe that this was a type of resort for the royal family. Incan villages were big. This one is small and it can only house a couple hundred people. So we think this was a retreat or a resort for the king to go to from time to time. Couple other different angles. And here you can really see how difficult, you're at the top of a mountain. And another shot. But Machu Picchu is a grand place. Because we believe it was a retreat for the royals, you have some of the best architecture that we have yet to find of the Incan style. This wall you're looking at, Hiram Bingham named it, and other scholars agree, as this is called the most perfect wall in the world. If you do geometry, if you know anything about architecture, if you know what the effort it took to build this wall, you can truly appreciate the marvel, the intelligence, and the ingenuity of the Incan peoples. The stacks, again, you always hear the stories that these rocks, these stones fit so well together you can't slide a piece of paper through it. That is true. They don't always necessarily match up, and when you ponder about how difficult that is to do, you can appreciate what they accomplished. So you're looking at the most perfect wall in the world. This is leading into the quarters of the king himself, or what we feel was the king's chamber. On the other side, you get a more typical wall that you see, but I like this shot because it gives you such a contrast of the most elite form of architecture. Here you have something in between, kind of like the middle level, and then the last level that is represented there. So even you had a highly stratified society with the royals, the middle class, and the poor. Each social class has its own type of architecture. The Palace of the Sun, you are looking at the outside walls of the inner chamber, again, of what we feel were the king stayed or the emperor. And again, you can see this tight-knit fitting of these stones. And what's even more impressive is this is round. Directly below this area, and it comes back to the pendant that I have on and a little bit about their cosmology. Directly below the Palace of the Sun, which you were looking at before, let's see, this area is called the Royal Tomb. Now, they never found any human remains there, but they thought possibly it was a tomb. They excavated and they found nothing of it. What they now think this is a representation of the underworld. So, which makes sense. You have the king living above, who is a god, the leader. Directly below where he sleeps is the underworld, the passing of what you go to after you pass on. And here again, you see the stair step of the Incan cross that is there. They tend to be in threes to represent the three levels of their understanding of the universe, and it's on your notes. The snake representing the underworld, the puma representing the present, and then the condor, again, condors, some of the largest birds, they're beautiful in flight, representing the afterlife, soaring to the afterlife. On the other side of what you're looking at is that. This is also called the Temple of the Condor, a giant rock slab that is created to look, here's the head of the condor, his wings fan out, and maybe this is the air that is being pushed as he is traveling on his journey to the afterlife. So you can see the cosmology represented right there. More things that you see representing the cosmology of the Incans. This is the sacred rock. Look at the rock, look at the mountain. Hopefully you can see the similarity. A couple more slides left and then I'm done. This particular rock that is right here on your notes, that is the Intihuatana. Intihuatana. This pillar, depending on as the sun, as we move around the sun, predicting to know when the summer solstice and the winter solstice, at certain times of the year, the shadows that are reflected as the sun hits this stone will let you know the changing of the seasons. Again, kind of hard to see, but this is the road you take, winding back and forth, the switchbacks. That's the road you take on a bus to get to the top of Machu Picchu. And the last image I give you, there's nothing more spectacular than going to Machu Picchu, and there's nothing more spectacular than watching the sunset at Machu Picchu, which is what you have here. So, the end.